click anything else. We're live!
We are live. Are we live? We're live.
We're live.
Let me check.
And it's still light outside.
I'm alive.
Still light outside.
Still
It's
is light
6:30 p.m. in Oregon. And hopefully you guys are doing well. Hopefully you're enjoying Friday night finally here again. Yay.
Yeah.
And Paul's going to take us through, what is the name of your painting?
What do we call it? We call it Lavender Fields?
Lavender Fields. Just a basic name.
So creative.
Sometimes we
on
get
that
creative and sometimes we end up being pretty
just like
this
simple
is
and
what
straight
it
to
is.
the point. This is it. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be painting tonight. And I know when you look at this painting, when you saw the instructions and saw the teaser for the painting, you probably thought it looked pretty hard. Maybe?
Mm-hmm. It looks hard. It does.
It's not.
It's got all the elements of hardness. Sky,
No.
mountains. No trees, though. So we looked at...
Well, I mean, technically there's a couple little trees. But
okay.
In terms of the actual techniques used to create this painting, if we just think about each little step on its own, instead of thinking of the big whole of the painting, then I think we'll do all right, because it's really not... The individual steps are not that difficult, so...
Good.
But it looks like we've got, is that Kim?
Yeah, glad to see Kim back.
Glad to see Kim
She
is
loves
back.
watching us paint, and the conversation is awesome, too. Thank you so much.
Good.
I love to hear that.
We like to hear that, too.
Sometimes we worry we get too chatty.
Well, you know, when we first started, I think it was the first month we did it. I'm going to just be honest with people. Was it our first month?
Yeah.
And we got somebody that canceled their subscription immediately because we talked too much.
And we talked even less than we do now. So.
Yeah, so, and we kind of just went, you know what?
She missed out on all those wonderful paintings.
And we're going to do us, and we're going to have fun, and this is why we do what we do. So we ready to
I don't
zoom
think
in?
we introduced ourselves. I'm Jenny.
I'm Paul.
This is Paul. We are GoBox Art Crate, art subscription box with that everybody gets 2 acrylic painting projects per month. We guide you through step by step. That's what we're doing tonight, and let's zoom in.
Let's zoom in and take a look at Lavender Fields. So this painting relies on a couple of things.
Hi, Charlotte. Thanks for saying hi.
Hello. This painting really relies on 2 different elements that really make it pretty dynamic. And I'm really happy with how this particular painting turned out. Those 2 things are pretty intense contrast between this really, really light area in this part of the canvas and then the darker areas on either side. That just, if you squint at it, you just see those different colors of the contrast really pop. The other thing is, I always feel like whenever we're doing a landscape or a sunset, sunrise, whatever, if we can get this really bold pink contrasted to purples and turquoises, it just really makes for a really fun painting without really having to be like a lot of detail and stuff. So it becomes interesting and dynamic just from the colors and the contrast. So, all that said, let's start off with a toast, because we always toast to good vibes and happy times and painting on a Friday night. Cheers.
Friday night paint nights are fun. I'm so glad we have these. So let's talk about the colors we're using.
Let's talk about our color scheme. So, colors are pretty simple.
I love this one. This is
the green apple. If we could use that more often, it would be nice. And we're actually using a new color next month that we've never used in.
Yeah, you guys get a brand new
subscription.
Not new to us. We've used it in studio years ago.
We've used it a lot, yeah. So our colors that we're really going to lean heavy on are phthalo red. I'll probably refer to it as pink because we're teaching. Black, white, pops of turquoise, and pops of our green apple. So let's get started. What we're going to do is we're going to take our finished painting, get it out of the way. That's what y'all are looking at, is a blank canvas. So if you haven't painted with us before, we always start with a blank canvas. Very rarely do we use a template.
Yeah, and these are pre-primed too. A lot of people have asked, do I need gesso? No, they are pre-primed, but gesso does fill in the grooves a lot. So if you ever want to paint on a fully smooth surface, you can get gesso. It's really inexpensive, and give it a coat, let it dry.
You can even sand it.
Yeah.
You know, after you put a couple of good coats on it, you can sand it down and get nice and smooth. And
I, for one, love painting on a really smooth surface.
It's fun to do once in a while. I actually like doing it too. Anyway, now we're talking too much. Okay, what we're going to start off by doing is we're going to mix up our color for our dark clouds that are in the sky. And we're going to start off by using a little bit of our phthalo red and a little bit of turquoise.
Did you dampen the brush first?
I did. That's
Okay.
what I was going to say. We always do that. Do those two together.
That was phthalo red and turquoise?
Yep, just phthalo red and turquoise. I'm going to add just a tiny drop of white to add some opacity. We really want it to be kind of a dark grape bubblegum kind of color. And what we're going to think about doing is we're thinking about this as being kind of a band of clouds that goes at a bit of an angle. And so I'm going to start pretty much, let's see, where are we down? About 4 inches from the top of the canvas or so, right about here. And I'm thinking about this kind of going up to about here. And as we work across, I'm going to be really choppy and uneven. I'm going to let this be broken up.
These are clouds.
Yeah, but I don't want you to really think about clouds.
These are streaks.
These are streaks. And the reason is, and I'm big on this, and you guys, if you've been doing this for any length of time with us, you know I'm reluctant to call things names like clouds and trees.
Kim says she really loves the paint colors this month. I do too. They're very spring.
Yeah, they're fun.
Perfect.
And the reason I'm reluctant to call them what they are is because our brain kind of sometimes steps in and says, ooh, it's a cloud, I need to paint an iCloud logo.
I need to make it puffy.
Yeah, and so I think I try to get people to think about more about the form and the overall feel of it rather than thinking of the label that we're going to put on it and what we're going to call it. So that's my thinking on that. I hope that makes sense.
Yep. Actually, that's smart to not introduce the name.
Yeah. So I'm going to work my way up from here. And I'm just going to leave nice big patches open. I'm not really, a lot of times when I do teach clouds, though, there is shape and form involved in what we do. This is less important on this one. I do think that getting these kind of horizontal little projections here and there is helpful, but it's not vital because, as we know, there's all kinds of different shapes of clouds. So we are going to keep working our way up. And see, now I'm mixing as I go. And so you can see I just got that color I just put on there is a little bit more of the turquoise. That's okay. What I'll do is if I end up with that, and then I'll just kind of like come in and I'll just pop some little hints of it elsewhere so it doesn't feel like it's out of place. And that's one of the reasons I really like painting as we go, or mixing as we go, rather than making just one huge batch of color, is we'll get a lot of variation in these clouds, for example. You can see this area over here is lighter, this is kind of more medium, we've got more of the turquoise going on over here, sometimes we'll get more pink. And what happens is we preload this thing with shadows, highlights, middle tones, and we do it all without having to think about it. It's just a natural byproduct of being a little bit lazy and a little bit messy. I just said lazy and messy, that's funny. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do, and I've got, so the topic of how much paint to use comes up a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people ask about that.
Yeah, so I tend to
use very little.
Yeah, I tend to be a little bit thin on the paint, and the reason is I have a little bit more control of the paint that way. But the main thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're getting the paint on the canvas thick enough that you're not seeing any of the white of the canvas still showing through. As long as you've got it on that thick.
I always figured you just liked the dry, scratchy noise so much.
I do. Well, the other thing is it allows us to make little adjustments, and it's like, let's think of it. It's analogy time, Jenny.
Yay, Paul analogy.
Yeah, it's like
Paul analogy. It's
like the difference between spilling a shot glass of milk on the counter versus spilling the whole gallon of milk.
Yeah.
One is a lot easier to deal with and clean up versus the other. So, all right. So I just am like this being nice and uneven. We can make adjustments to this later. The nice thing about this particular painting is usually the sky, when it's done, it's done. This one we can make a lot of little adjustments too. So
I do have a really quick question.
Okay.
Because I'm legit wondering, and probably other people wonder too, what made you decide to paint the clouds first?
Because I usually don't. I mean, is
yeah,
that
I
what
was
you mean?
curious. Yeah, like, yeah, you don't. You usually paint them out, like on top of your base color.
So in this particular one, I wanted that darkness to guide the rest of it.
Okay.
So to me, sometimes it's easier to get that dark element in and then come in with our sky colors and let those sit on top. So like in reality, like, let me pull the original painting over. What I'm thinking of when I'm looking at this particular, the finished painting, is not that this pink down in here is actually the skies, the sky. Mm-hmm. It's more clouds.
Yeah.
And so then those clouds get a chance to overlap onto the these clouds which are closer to us, and then there's just a little bit more hint there. Now this sky is also sky, and that's what's nice about this particular technique on like this particular sky. So you've got sky, you've got clouds, but it's very loose as to which is what. You know, it's more like how each person is going to see it differently. Now, because I wanted the focus to be on these clouds, we put the blue in there just as a little hint of a reminder that this is sky, and that's what we're going to do now. We're actually just going to use
Are we washing our brush?
Yeah, give it a quick rinse. I haven't really washed my brush, but a little bit of turquoise, a little bit of white. And basically I'm going to come in and I'm going to hit these areas where I haven't painted.
I love this color.
And I do like it. It's like, it's okay if these like mix a little bit and interact and create some other colors that are in between. That's part of the reason I wanted to do it this way. Mm-hmm. There's another one. You remember the
It
Twin
is
Rocks?
kind of a fun way to do it.
The Twin Rocks painting that I did back in the studio for so many years?
Mm-hmm.
We did this same kind of thing where we brought the sky color in.
I never actually ended up with the opportunity to teach that one, ever, not once. So that's amazing I skipped that.
Yeah, you know, and in hindsight, it's like one of those, it's like, sometimes it's like you look back and you go, yeah, it's not my favorite.
I actually really like that one. I do remember
I think it's maybe because I taught it so many times, though.
Yeah. I do remember the first time you taught it, you came home and you were like, everybody's clouds look like cigars.
They looked like floating hot dogs. And you know what? You know why that was? People were thinking about clouds.
Well, and we learned how to describe things a little bit better,
Yeah, that's true. That was like our first year of being
in business.
teaching people how to paint.
Teaching people how to paint while they indulge in alcoholic beverages.
Yeah. So basically what we're doing up in this upper area is we're hitting all the gaps. These is like a good time. Like if you've got some areas that, you know, feel like it's a little too thin, you can even brush this on. It's not going to hurt anything. We can come back and add darkness back into this.
Hey, Joanna. Thanks for popping in.
Yeah. It's good to see everybody today.
Yeah.
So one thing I'm going to do, though, is I am going to leave this little hint of this dark color here as a separation. So I'm going to kind of pick a spot where that transition happens. And I may come back, and actually if you look at the printed instructions, you'll see that there are some little shifts in the sky a little bit here and there, where I've either added blue back in or I've added clouds back in. And that's just kind of like normal kind of thing. I didn't point it out in the instructions because it was more me looking at it and going, oh, I want to have a little bit more cloud over here. I want a little bit more turquoise over here, whatever.
That's so bright and pretty right there.
Oh.
Mine's mixing a little bit.
Yeah.
Like with the purple.
Yeah.
But yours is really clear and vivid.
Being very careful not to
paint too much in the purple.
Yeah.
That's where I ran into problems. But I think actually it toned some of these formations a little bit so they'll look okay.
Yeah. And even like that area right there, I just went over the purple with a little bit of that turquoise. It didn't really change it. You know, it just kind of neutralized it a bit, but it's still dark. So I'm going to leave that like that. We're going to rinse our brushes. And we're going to get them really nice and clean, guys. Really nice and clean.
Oh, what color are we going to next?
We are going to our phthalo red.
Oh, yeah, and having turquoise in it will make it muddy.
Yeah. So I've just given it really, spent a lot of time rinsing it on the bottom, and then I'm really making sure to brush it out on my paper towel. And you guys can see where I'm brushing the corner of my paper towel there. There's no pigment coming off of there. That's where I want to be. This purple probably is pretty close to dry. If it's not, what we can do is I'm going to start just down below our clouds.
So just the plain phthalo red?
Just straight up phthalo red, maybe about a ½ inch below. And I'm just going to be broken and uneven with this as well. Because I want this choppiness to continue throughout the whole sky.
This is what I feel like is the harder part of your paintings for people like me who tend to be a little type A.
Yeah, well, and I think that's...
Where you're just like, we're just painting a shape, and it's like, but what does it belong to?
What is this? Well, I mean, even like earlier when I said we're going to start painting these splotches across, and you're like,
what are they?
Are they clouds? Are these the clouds?
I need a written confirmation as to what they are.
Notarized, preferably. Yeah. Oh, and I think that's kind of a byproduct of our society. You know,
Totally.
We are so rigid in everything that we need explanations. You know, like we bought ourselves a couple of beverages, and we're like, "What? There's no nutritional information on the can.
We don't know the calories. We don't know how much.
Should
how
I
many
actually
grams of
drink?
sugar?
Yeah. And so sometimes, and especially when it comes to art, and I think that's where a lot of people struggle with the landscapes. Is landscapes are something that we can photograph and photograph perfectly. And in fact, if we use an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy phone or something like that, it automatically processes it down and says, let's make it even more perfect without you even having to do anything. And so when we start painting, we like to have that same perfection. And sometimes, really, what we have to do is let go of the need of that perfection. And
leave those Instagram filters behind you.
Yeah, and that's where I think people, like when we start painting clouds and stuff like this, this is where they have a mental challenge because
it's hard to wrap your brain around. Like, okay, why is he dropping it ½ an inch below all the other clouds? Yeah, and.
Well, yeah, because
I think about these things.
We're not even talking about getting into thinking about like the dimensional aspect of things. But I remember one time I was teaching like a very traditional landscape painting at the studio. I can't even remember which one it was. And one of the students came up to me after, I think it was during the break, and she's like, "Man, this is so abstract." And I was thinking about it. I'm like, it's really not abstract art at all. But I guess what she was meaning was it's abstract to her way of thinking. And I think that's normal, now. Again, letting go, and just letting the paint do its job.
I think, like, for me, who tends to, like, do you think I overthink?
Just a little. Sometimes.
I think
we all do, though.
I think it's better to just kind of just let my brain go somewhere else and just go through the motions almost. Because if I start thinking about it a lot, then I start... My challenge, my thing I struggle with is I get over detailed. Yeah. And I want to be very, like, all the painters that I admire are very loose painters. And I think that the over detailing just comes from overthinking. Yeah.
But I mean, there's a very popular animated film that had a great song on it.
Let It Go.
Yeah.
Is it spelled Gogh? It
is. It is indeed. So this, like, if you actually, like, this, I'm looking at this on the monitor, and this just looks like pure chaos right now.
But pretty chaos.
Yeah.
Like, I love that stuff. It's so
that
pretty.
little extra pop. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we've kind of just got this little band of color there, and the reason we put these extra little bits like this in here is it kind of works like an underpainting. So when we start working our way down, there's an extra little layer there, and that color will pick up other colors on top of it, and it's a way of blending without actually blending. So visually it breaks up.
Shortcut.
Yeah. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to just freshen up a little bit of the phthalo red kind of in these lower areas.
This is so we have some wet paint to mix
So
with.
we've got some wet paint to mix with, and we're going to work our way down to, let me check and see. Let me put my beverage right here. You can see what I'm drinking. So
It's actually really good. That's the one we
It's
were looking at the
really good.
sugar content on. It is Jack Daniel's Southern Peach. What is it? Seltzer?
Southern Peach Country Cocktail.
It is so sweet, but so good.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we live in Oregon, and they're not allowed to sell canned cocktails that have real alcohol in
So it's
it.
like malt.
It's like malt liquor,
Yeah.
so it's even, yeah. But
Me, I'm drinking rosé.
yeah, anyway. So what we're going to do next is, I got, what I was grabbing is the coaster, and we can use our coaster as kind of a loose reference about how far down we're going to bring this, but it really doesn't matter. We can go all the way to the bottom of the canvas if we want. But what I'm going to start doing, I'm not going to worry about cleaning my brush. I'm just going to take some white paint now on the brush that's still got some of the phthalo red. And it's just like what we did up above. We're just going to work in between, let it pick up some of the wet paint, fill in some of the gaps maybe we've missed. And I'm going to initially start going pretty straight across before I start working my way down. But I'm going to bring this up into our pink a bit. And the reason we do this, like the reason I do, like you were asking, like why do we start an inch below? I like to get the nice heavy color band where I want it to be and then bring that color up into the other elements. And so it's kind of the same thing here. I'm starting kind of at the bottom edge and then I'm bringing this color up. And as I work up, my brush is really bouncing a lot on the canvas.
So are you like lifting it a lot?
It's kind of just, it's just kind of moving side to side and bouncing and letting these colors mix together. And you can bring some of this up. The further up we go, we're not adding more pink, we're just letting some of the pink pick up, and the further we move away from our white, the less intense that becomes. And we get this wonderful transition. You get too much, I mean, right now, if you want to add a little bit more of the phthalo red in, you can.
Kim says she loves the way the white is blending with the red. It's so smooth. I love that too. It's super satisfying.
These two colors, the way they blend on the canvas is really, you hit the nail on the head. It is so satisfying.
I love it because it takes the phthalo red, which on its own tends to be a little bit transparent, and it suddenly becomes really opaque, and you can really play around with how hard you press down on the brush. If you go really light, you can get these really pretty streaks of white that look like those sort of feathery angelic clouds that form in the atmosphere, those really thin ones.
So let's think about that for a second. So if I'm going to lift this up real quick and you can see.
So messy up close.
You see how messy that is up close. And if we spent a bunch of time brushing that out and blending it, it wouldn't be that interesting.
No.
I mean, it would
That's
still be pretty.
I think that's what's hard a lot of times, because up close we're seeing all the stuff, and then our brains just automatically catalog everything we did, like that we perceive as wrong. Like, oh, I made a mistake there. I need to go back and correct it. And so by the end of a paint session, your brain is a little bit in overload because you've sort of cataloged all these quote unquote mistakes.
Yeah.
And then the next day, you've forgotten a lot of that, so you love the painting so much more.
Yeah, and I noticed
In most cases.
I noticed when I lifted this up, I've got a lot of areas up in the clouds and stuff where the canvas is showing through. I'm going to come back and fix those later when I've got a little bit more done, and I'm not going to fixate on trying to fix it right now. But what I want to do now is I'm going to grab my coaster and see, I need to bring this down a little bit further because I actually want to come down a little bit lower than where our mountains are going to be. I think that's something that we have a tendency of, when I say we, when we paint, meaning everybody, I just put a little bit of extra phthalo red there so you guys can see it. And I'm letting this bottom part be a little bit smoother because I feel like this is transitioning into sky. But we have a tendency of thinking of like where our foreground element is going to be. So we think about where the mountains are going to be, and then we just want to paint down to the mountains. In reality, what we need to do is paint down below the mountains so that we don't create a false horizon or make it feel like something's missing. What we're going to do later is it's okay if all of this is slightly pink. Because what we're going to do later is we're going to come back with pure white on a smaller brush and really just slather it on there. In spots.
Mm-hmm. Hey, today's Earth Day.
It is.
Happy Earth Day, everyone.
Happy Earth Day.
I forgot earlier today. I remembered that when I looked at the date and I was like, 22nd. Oh, yeah, it's Earth Day.
Yeah, so I've got a little bit...
Brighter turquoise?
Yeah, no, I like the brighter turquoise.
I do too.
I've got this patch up in here where I feel like the phthalo red could be a little bit more intense. You can see it's a little bit streaky and stuff. I'm actually going to let that dry first and then worry about that later. But what I wanted to bring this down is to show you the mountains. And being based in Oregon, born and raised here, I always think of the Cascade Mountains, Mount Hood, and it's the one most people would, Mount Hood, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, obviously. And so I tend to always paint that kind of mountain because that's what, I see Mount Hood almost every day. So
we can see it from our son's bedroom.
We can. And the reason I say almost every day is it does get cloudy and rain here a lot too.
Especially this last week.
And this last week has been pretty wet. But, so Jenny said, hey, why don't you do something different? So I looked up the Rocky Mountains or the Tetons and more of a different type of mountain. They're not volcanic. They're a tectonic.
So they're formed by earthquakes? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, they're formed by one sheet pushing, all that stuff.
Very cool. They look completely different.
They look completely different, and in some ways they might actually be easier to paint.
Woohoo!
And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mix up some more of our sky color or our cloud color. I'm just going to add a little bit more white to it. And just, again...
turquoise and phthalo?
Yeah, I'm going to come in just a little bit below... Let me see, where am I at? If I were putting my coaster on here and thinking of it as a clock face, I'm going to come in like maybe about 2 o'clock or so. I want to make sure that I get mountains at least, like no mountain dips below where I stopped. But to do these mountains, really, I'm just using the shape of the brush and creating a few little ridges and peaks.
My first one looks like Cascade. It's hard to get away from that.
It is, because we've been doing it for so long, and the way you can get away from that is think of it, do one that's whiter, for example.
Whiter or
wider?
Wider, okay.
Yeah. And then basically what I'm going to do is I start working across here. Again, I'm making sure that none of this dips below so that we're seeing raw canvas. But you can just kind of take your color and blend it down so it starts to cover a bit. And I'm just going to keep working across. I do like to kind of do a little bit lower, so maybe this is my lowest point in my mountains right here, and everything I want to do up from there. You can go up even higher. Looks like there is a question maybe.
So are the mountains you are painting tonight the Cascade Range? Oh, yeah, you just covered that. So you probably questioned that before you saw, before we talked about it.
Yeah,
This is Colorado.
Yeah, exactly. Or it might be somewhere else. It could be Alaska.
Oh yeah.
It could be.
I don't know if there's any lavender fields. Well, maybe there
might be.
Know.
They could just be wildflowers. The other kind of the other mountain range that is like this is the Sierra Nevadas are also a tectonic.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That makes sense, being California area, moving over.
Think of like El Capitan and Half Dome and stuff. Those are all created by.
And they're all just big
uplift slabs of granite.
Yeah. We got to go there in 2015. Was
17, I think.
Wait, oh, was it 2017? Okay.
No,
No, I think you're right. I think it's 2017.
Yeah, it was.
We did a
2017.
road trip from Oregon to. It was so amazing.
The kids liked it too.
Yeah. Even the long car ride, they were okay. But we broke it up with a lot of hotel stops, so I think that
I think we
helped.
never drove more than 5 hours in a day.
Yeah.
We took 2 days to get down there, and I think actually one day we took 3 days to get down there and 2 days to come back. So we did have one day where we did like on the way home like an 8 hour drive.
That was long. Then when we stopped at Reading.
Yeah. But the kids were ready to get home to the dogs, so.
They were.
And the dogs were ready for us to be home.
That was neat though. If you can ever get the chance to make it out to Yosemite, it is just amazing.
I actually would like to go back again.
Mm-hmm.
I would do it different. Like the actual visit to the actual park. I think I would spend more time up above.
Yeah, that would be neat.
So one of the things that I'm kind of a big proponent of is making sure that your outer two edges of a mountain range on a canvas are your tallest two areas. So I like everything to kind of scoop down. The reason I like to do that is it funnels the eye back to the middle of the canvas. So when somebody's looking at it, it gives them a funnel. I mean, it gives them like, it just pulls the eye back in, and that's what we want. We don't want lines. Like if we did a mountain like that was here and it just went down and it started to follow like the line of this, it actually sometimes, if you look at a painting that makes you feel a little bit disoriented, a lot of times it's because it's out of balance because of something like that. And it's because something doesn't feel right. So I've got a little bit more turquoise in this. That's all right. I'm just going to kind of smudge some of this color in. It can have a little bit more pink. We're not worrying. We're not thinking about details. We're not thinking about shadows and highlights. We're not going to do that in this painting. They're just a silhouetted mountain range. I've got a little bit darker on this left-hand side. That's okay.
It actually looks like in your original that not a lot of these mountains show in the end.
Yeah, they do.
Do they?
Yeah, they all do.
Like, I mean, they're really small.
Oh yeah,
Perfect.
just there's not a lot of vertical space that they take up. Yeah, and the reason I like to pull this color down is so that it takes the pressure off of you in terms of figuring out where am I going to take my field up to. So by just pulling this down further, you can pull now everything up to it a little bit easier. And it just helps that whole process of figuring out what goes where.
I just realized I need to raise my mountain range up a little bit because I wasn't going to end up with a lot of room for the field. Do you think I'm high enough up?
Let me see. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, you can be. I could go a
Does
little.
that mean I need to go higher?
No. I could go a little higher with my mountains too. Not much. I'm just using my coaster as a reference. The mountains are kind of the height of my coaster. So if you feel like you want to do that, and I'm going to do that.
It's a good chance to, if you started off with different mountains and you want to change them up, it's a good time to do it.
Second coat never hurts anyway.
It's like, oh, now I learned how to do them. After I painted 12 of them, now I know how.
Right.
So I can redo them.
And if you want to touch it up using a smaller brush, by all means, go for it. There's no rules. I think that's probably teaching in the sip and paint industry for 10 years. I think the number one question was what brush? And I think the last year we were open, teaching in person, well, last year, 2021, when we were still doing some in-person classes, you and I had both kind of gotten to the point where we were just like, whichever one feels good in your hand, and because that's actually the right answer.
Close your eyes and pick it and let your intuition be your guide.
But the reality is that's the right answer anyway. It's, if you're doing something small, use a small brush. If you're doing something big, use a big brush. Challenge yourself once in a while and do the opposite. That's always a Fun thing. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and finish covering this canvas. We'll call it the underpainting process. I'm not going to I'm not going to worry about rinsing my brush unless I feel like the paint's starting to dry in the brush, and you can tell real easy when you're painting if it starts feeling like it's being sticking to the canvas, then it's probably starting to dry a bit.
Hey, Sally. There's a name I recognize. She says she loves it when you incorporate the coaster.
Oh yeah, I like doing that a lot. In fact, we've got one. Oh, we should have brought it down. Oh, maybe we did. Did we?
Next month I use the coaster for the moon.
We've got the May the 4th painting.
It's under there.
Where I'll show you guys real quick while this is kind of setting up.
This is a bonus outside of the subscription painting that every year we do a May the 4th painting. It's traditional. We've been doing it for several years in the Sip and Paint studio, and then on Vingo tutorials.
Because we're big Star Wars fans.
We're Star Wars nerds, basically.
So here's our X-Wing fighter painting, and I'll give you guys a little hint. There's our son, and there's our other son is one of our paint bottles.
That is called Rebel Flight and is available for $25 on GoBox.com.
And we are going to live stream that on May the 4th.
May the 4th, you can join us for another video. And I'll try to do some Star Wars trivia. I did that last time. It was so much fun.
All right, so back to our painting. Quick little rinse. And I'm going to take a little bit of black now, and I'm going to start right below where my paint ended.
It's unusual to see you use black.
I don't use it very often, but in this case, the green color we're using pops against black.
Yeah, it does. The green apple.
Yeah. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, once I've kind of painted a little band in, I'm just very gently going to work this up and wipe my brush off a few times. So it's just below. If we were to go all the way across and think of it a line, we don't want this to touch the bottom of our sky. So we want to leave a little hint of separation between our mountains and this black foreground base coat. One thing you can do is you can kind of, once in a while, you can take this color and kind of give it a little flick up, like it's going up into this little valley here or there. Like I've got a little valley kind of right here. Mm-hmm. Right below that, I can kind of take this black and just kind of give it a little flip up so it looks like it's riding up into that valley a bit. You don't have to do that. It's just kind of like an extra little detail that kind of works. And then we're just going to fill the rest of the way down with black. I got a crooked canvas again. It's wobbling.
That's funny.
If you get too much black, don't worry about it. We're going to come back in, and we can always come back and add some purple back on top. But at first, when we're working through this area, it does feel very intense.
Kim says, using black is such a commitment. That is the perfect description.
It is. And just think of it like this on this particular one. We're not painting over anything right now. We're just painting over the raw canvas. And the black is just basically, it's like our primer for what we're going to paint up above.
It's going to make all those other colors pop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next month, we don't get black.
No.
And we thought we were using it, and then today we confirmed with each other. Did you use black in your painting?
No.
No?
Not at all.
Did you? No? Okay.
So now we got to go through our
we actually had to...
Oh, there's the one of the boxes. Hand it.
Oh, yeah.
We actually had... Next month, your paints are going to be coming in these little boxes instead of the tissue paper. And Stephanie, who helps us, had already packed most of our paint for the month in these.
And she included black.
And she
because I
included-
gave her the wrong information.
Yeah,
That's my
so
fault.
she did black instead of blue, and that was Jenny's fault. So
I
we're-
owe Stephanie lunch on Monday.
and I think what we're gonna do is have our son go through and pull all the black ones. So anyway, we're human,
We just won't
people.
tell Stephanie.
We're human. Well, we're gonna have to tell Stephanie because she's gonna be the one putting the blue in.
Yeah. I will help her.
All right.
Mine is a lot lighter than yours, but I'm just going to pretend
Well,
there's fog back there.
The other thing you can
I mean,
do,
it's just lighter right here at the base.
it actually, while this is still wet, you can take a little bit of your lavender and
Make it foggy.
yeah,
You
just
do
kinda,
often see a little bit of fog along the base of the mountains. So is this sunset, sunrise? What do you think?
I don't know.
No either. I think I see it more as a sunrise, actually. But
Yeah, I do feel like typically sunrises tend to have a cooler feeling, color-wise,
Mm-hmm.
and sunsets tend to have a warmer feeling. I don't know why, but I've watched both over the years. All right, so this actually would be like, we could cut this off right now and be like, okay, I'm happy with this painting. But obviously we're not going to do that. What we are going to do is we do need this to dry down here a little bit. So now it's going to be our time where we're going to go in there. We're going to start touching up some elements of our clouds.
You said the word.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to retire our biggest brush for the time being. I don't know, we may not use it again. So I'm going to go to our number 8.
Okay.
And for those of you who are not subscribers to our we're not going to call it a subscription box anymore. For those of you who are not members, we do, when you first sign up, we do send you a set of brushes with your first month's shipment, and we use the same brushes for the videos that we teach.
This is number 8.
Number 8.
Okay.
Yep. I don't know. Is that what?
Yeah, it's number 8. It's got a little number.
Yep. They do have a number.
Can you read?
Right there?
Do you
No.
need bifocals?
I do need bifocals, actually. And I'm just going to get a little bit of our darker kind of violet color that we've used in the sky. And I'm just going to kind of start coming through and hitting up any of these areas in the sky where maybe I didn't get enough paint.
Surprised you're using this small of a brush, Paul. That's very unusual for you.
I don't know. I've been using it more. Like, actually, the Rebel Flight, is that what we called it?
Mm-hmm.
The clouds are almost all done with this brush. Like, the whole process. But there's a difference in, like, how I use a small brush, I think. I like to feel special about it. But I use it very sloppy and uncontrolled versus using it to do detail. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think so.
I mean,
That's what I need. I need to get more sloppy with my paintings.
well, and the thing is like when you put a small brush in somebody's hand and they're typically going to slow down, they're going to try harder to control it and control the output that it gives. And I try to take a small brush and take that away. Take away that instinct for myself. So it doesn't mean it has to be that way for you, but if you see how my hand's moving across the canvas, you know, it's moving a lot, it's moving fast. It's not out of control,
You're going crazy.
but I'm also not sitting there using it like I'm doing mechanical drawing either. So just hitting any of these little spots where I'm seeing canvas, or any place that feels like it just needs a little bit more
Paint.
saturation.
I've got a few spots where it's really very thin coat.
Mm-hmm.
You can see a bit of canvas through, which...
We're going to do the same thing with our phthalo red in a minute too. So But you can rinse your brush off. You can do the same with your turquoise and white if you want to. I just want to call this process just saturating the color.
Oh, Kim, yes. She says she checked on the website for the palette paper. They were sold out. Yes, they are in stock. I checked on it a little bit after adding it and realized that I had to actually add stock, which I didn't realize at the time. So I went back and added stock, and they are ready to roll for sure.
And just while you're talking about that, I'm going to give you guys a heads up to expect a change in the website in the next month or so.
Yeah, we found a different hosting site that's designed for subscriptions. Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. I'm not using that word. What are we calling it?
Memberships.
Paul wants to get away from using the word subscription box.
Our current site, we ended up with all these extra add-ons, and it was just, we kept having to add on and add on and add on, and not only is it
An extra $200 a month for this, and an extra $100 a month.
Not only
for
has
this.
it become expensive, it ends up every time you add another element, it adds one more level of opportunity for the system to glitch or for it not. So like our customer portal has been something that's been difficult for people to use properly, and so this new system that we're switching to is like very much customer portal forward.
Yes, you can do a lot of this stuff on your own. Of like,
Yeah.
I want to pause, or I want to.
And I'm working with the new company right now, and so you might get an email asking you to confirm that your subscription, and it's going to actually go through the same credit card processor, but you may get an email asking you to just click this to confirm that it's what it's supposed to be.
Sally says she cuts up the boxes for her palette. That's so smart.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah. And then you've got extra works of art. You know, you might be able to like contact one of the galleries downtown, have them pick up that. Be like, this is my.
You can use the tissue paper too underneath your canvas to protect
your table.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of just the raw, just pure phthalo red, and up in this area, just going to hit these clouds with some extra pop. This part that I'm doing right now is really important, and this is what really makes this work, is coming in and setting this phthalo red right on top of some of our it's like almost like a highlight.
Last little kiss from the sun.
Yeah, exactly. And this really, before when we can, like here's a great example is this area right here where I just kind of brushed it in between because I just kind of wanted to pick up there. Now if I take this color and pop it in there as a second coat and let that trail over onto my darker cloud elements a little bit, all of a sudden that adds another level of depth and I don't want to call it opacity or solidity, but it just adds a more, like a bigger emphasis on the clouds. Bring some of this color down in. And the other thing we can do is we can take a little bit of this pure phthalo red and just have it kind of kiss some of the undersides of some of these clouds up here at the very top. And I'm not putting it on super thick up here. I just want it to just tint a bit. And as far as like a tip on like when we're doing like this kind of cloud thing, I know people ask a lot about this. Probably the best thing is don't think about it too much. A lot of times people get in here and they start trying to outline it, the cloud, and you don't really need to. You just want to just
give it a little kiss.
Just give it a little
kiss of color.
Glancing blow with this little bit of color. You don't have to do it all either, because there's going to be some times where you've got more shadow. I am actually really happy with that sky. I'm not going to do anything with it. at this point. But you can see just adding that extra little bit of phthalo red in these areas. Actually, I can do a little bit more right here.
Very nice, Paul.
Just makes that all come alive, and I'll zoom in a bit here.
Magical zoom.
Magical zoom. It looks messy.
Look, it's a Monet. It's really nice from a distance and really messy up close.
Really messy up close. And it's true. It is messy up close. Okay. So mine on the monitor looks really light and bright in here. And it is, but it's still fairly pale pink. I'm going to switch brushes right now. I'm going to switch to my number 4 just simply because I don't want to introduce any other color from anything. So, number 4, pure white. And just right in this area here. And yeah, you can see it. When I brush that on there, you can see it.
Ooh, yeah. This is the sun.
It's not the sun. It's just a
Bit of light from the
quit
sun.
labeling things, Jenny.
Hey, you called these clouds earlier.
That's true. No, it's just adding extra brightness, and this is where that real bold contrast comes from. And what I'm going to do is, it's just like everything else we've done in the sky. I'm going to start with this little spot that's maybe 1.5 inches across, and as I work away from that, I'm going to let the brush separate. So it's going to pick up and it's going to bounce, and it's going to leave little bits and pieces.
It's actually your technique you're using is a little bit similar to the sky I did in the Morning Wishes. From,
Yeah, it is.
Was that?
Last
What was it?
month,
February?
April.
Was it April? No, April.
March.
Yeah,
March.
yeah,
March.
Yeah, March.
March.
Where are we?
What month is it?
What month is it? What year is it?
Yeah, and what that does is it's a way of, like I was saying earlier, it's like rather than blending by doing something smoothly, you take the color and you start with it fairly concentrated, and as you work away, you let that break up. And it does the same thing visually when we look at it, and actually it's more interesting to look at up close than if we take a big brush and just get a nice big blend going on.
Or a big arc of the sun
Big
shape.
arc, yeah. So that's just, I mean, that really is a lot of contrast right there. I'm not doing any more over here. I got some little speckles of black from when I did my something there. Not going to worry about that. Maybe I could touch that up. I don't know. Now I'm going to end up touching it up.
What have you done?
I had a couple little black smudges there.
Birds. They're just unintentional birds, Paul.
Yeah, it's true. They could be. All touched up. But that's something like you can even do, like if you're using this brush and you like the choppiness, I mean, you can take some more of the phthalo red over here. Just do it smaller scale because you're further away, so smaller scale. And just adds a little bit of interest over here. Like I said, I mean, when we first started, it's like, okay, there's nothing from a technical standpoint that's difficult about any of this. It's more of a just letting it be and being comfortable with it being choppy and uneven. Might got a couple little spots right here. Nice thing about this color palette up in the sky area up here is you can really keep working on this. I mean, you can come back tomorrow with the same colors and just use your turquoise and phthalo red and white and
Add little dabs.
yeah, I mean you could overwork the heck out of this in a hurry, but I mean it wouldn't hurt it. Sometimes overworking a painting hurts it, and in this case it's just going to add more depth unless what you're doing is neutralizing it.
Yeah.
And we've seen that where people work it, and then what ends up is
Everything gets muddy.
Everything gets muddy. And we don't want that.
Nope.
There we go. All right, I'm not going to do any more because it might get muddy. But even if it does, I mean, these colors, the way they interact with each other, let it dry and you can paint over it with that other color. But that's a popping sky. Slamming. All right, so let's talk about our next step. Let me see where we're at here.
He can't remember. He's got to reference his notes.
I mean, I do. I just want to make sure.
I have to do that too.
I just want to make sure I wasn't missing a step. So, like this painting, sometimes we go through it twice. Sometimes we paint it and then we go back and paint it again to take the photographs. And this particular painting, I just sat down and
did it all in one.
Just did the progress pics
frame.
and everything, and I was using photo reference. But when I use photo reference for these paintings, and this is something that I think is important for anybody if they're going to sit down and paint, and we're buying a little bit more time for this to dry, by the way. When I don't ever just like find a picture online and be like, I'm going to paint that, because it's somebody else's work.
Even a photograph.
Even a photograph. I don't ever really look at paint. The only time I reference paintings is if I'm looking at like great, masterpieces by Bierstadt and Church and Monet and all that. But I do like, it's good to work from reference photos when you're learning how to paint, or even if you're just painting something. You want to paint a sunset, look at photos of sunsets. But what I'll typically do is I'll look at elements from several different landscapes and pick and choose what elements I want.
Yeah, I think it was Picasso who said, what did he say? I can't remember. I need to look up the exact wording because I will get it reversed. But it was perfect in regards to that. I'm going to look it up.
Look it up. All right. So now we're going to start talking about these rows. And I think doing something like a row of like lavender or anything can be a little bit hard to do from a perspective wise, and I think we did a pretty good job with this one. Let me bring it back. We did a pretty good job of making it feel like we're looking down the rows, but without like sometimes people get way too this way with it and it feels very like you're looking down a tunnel.
Okay, the quote.
Yep.
Good artists copy, great artists steal.
Yep.
And that's for sure. The little theft of things like, oh, I really like the colors in that sunset.
Yep.
Are very different than I'm going to copy that exact entire painting.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to use number 8 for this. And I don't want to use the green super intensely yet. So I'm going to take a little bit of green. Let's add a dot of turquoise to it. Let's actually add a couple dots of turquoise.
Ooh, that makes a pretty color.
And a little dot of red.
Oh.
So we kind of make like an ugly olive color. It's kind of just a neutral color. And this is just going to be for our layout.
I think a little more red to mine. Mine didn't end up olive. It ended up kind of a strange color.
That's all right.
Let me just fix that up. Okay.
So I'm going to just start a little bit off center at the back, just below the black. And I'm just going to start with about a brush width. And basically, if I were to come straight down, I'm going to go kind of give myself a little reference. Let's say, let me just measure here. Inch and a half.
Your instructions say like they're like an inch and a half or something.
Inch and a half or so. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start dabbing the brush kind of back and forth. It's okay to leave little gaps. We want it to feel kind of... If you've ever seen a lavender field, they've really mounded the rows.
Very, yeah. They're... Well, if you think of it, yeah, the way the plant grows is very mounded.
Mm-hmm.
With lots of bees. Honeybees.
And bumblebees.
Mm-hmm.
So I start with that first one. Then we're going to work from there. Next one, I'm just going to go off to the right, almost touching. A little bit bigger of a gap at the bottom, and again, I'm going to kind of go about the same width. And you can kind of work along this way first if you want to. And kind of come back. Nice thing is we are painting over black, so if any of this gets all wonky, you can always kind of come back in and touch it up with the black if you want to. That's the other nice thing about painting over black is it's really easy to fix anything. There's two. I'm going to do one to the other direction now, the other side. So even the gaps in between the rows should feel like they're almost completely closing up by the time you get to the back, but opening up as they get a little closer.
Oh, I've got a great picture. Here's the, let me see. See how he says they're mounded? Look at those. See how rounded they are?
Oh yeah, it's kind of hard to see.
Mm-hmm. No, you can see it in the monitor there.
Yeah, they're very much a rounded tuft. All right, so now we've got 3. And we're basically going to do 2 more on each side. And this is where it gets a little tricky, because what happens is we start filling out across the bottom, but then the top we're not really filling out very far across the top. So what we do is once we get done with our main rows, is we actually just kind of smudge some color in there so it feels like there's more going on. And there's no right or wrong way to the bottom. My canvas is bouncing.
I could stuff a little folded tissue there if you want.
You got a book of matches?
Does anybody anymore?
No, but that's the way all the diner tables were always.
It's funny, my uncle used to own an auto parts store, and like one of his business card was a book of matches that he'd hand out to people.
I mean, that was the day.
It was like, it was probably the late 70s, early 80s, and everybody smoked, and that was just like my advertisement and business card is a book of matches. I found one recently that I had saved from my parents' house. I should give it to him. I should mail it to him. Remember this?
He's probably like, I got a whole case of those things sitting in the garage.
Oh, hey, Daniel, you made the video. Awesome.
But can he see the video? How's the dial-up working over in Idaho today, Daniel?
Yes, Daniel is in a very remote area where internet is questionable.
I heard he has to go out and crank a
big
wheel
something
to charge the system. All right. So basically, we started with our center one. We're going to end up with 3 rays on each side that are fairly well formed. So I've got one. Let's do this other one here.
Surprisingly good internet. You can see the video. That's awesome. My lines kind of look like they were planted by people who were just not really caring.
That's good. That's the way it should look, because like that's the way when I see, that's the way when I see
That's
lavender
the way,
fields.
Do you like it?
That's the way they look to me. They don't look very precise.
Yeah. We did a few vineyard paintings like this where we do the rows and they had the fan out like this, and people would complain that they're, in class, like, my rows look all crooked. And I'm like, it's okay. The people who were planting them were enjoying the fruits of the fermented fruits of their labor.
What's the excuse on this one?
I don't know. Still enjoying the fruits of some other plant.
They're burning a lot of sage.
How many rows do you end up doing?
So we started with our initial one,
Mm-hmm.
and I do 3 defined rows on each side of that.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, well, there's more to it.
Okay.
3 defined rows to each side of that.
Oh, I missed the key word there.
Yeah. The next step, and if you need to pause because you're catching up, by all means, don't let me stop you from hitting that pause button.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next thing we're going to do you get your 3 on each side?
Yeah.
You do. Okay, cool. So the next thing we're going to do
Oh, were you referring to me?
No.
Pausing?
No. We're just going to hint this first edge of the next row.
Mm.
And then from there, we're just going to kind of
Whoa, what are you doing there?
just kind of smudge this color out. You can be a little bit more defined in this bottom part.
Is this when the painter got lazy?
This is no, what happens is if you keep fanning it out, it looks wrong.
Yeah.
And so rather than keeping fanning it out, we're just suggesting.
So this is like
This part's out of focus.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like you're using a lens that like the portrait lens where the edges are softened out.
Yeah. I mean, you can come through and smudge in like a very loose band of color if you want.
Do we do that on the other side too?
We do that on the other side too, yeah.
Hey, I can do that.
And the other thing we do is when we start getting into our highlights and things like that, we add additional highlights in through this area kind of in line with this light area, and that kind of just continues this eye, pulling the eye away from these less defined areas, which works. Trust me, you don't really want to try to do them all. I mean, again, it just starts becoming very clumsy and cumbersome. Where does it end? Where does it start?
It becomes a little too over planned looking.
Yeah, too rigid.
Yeah, we don't want rigid.
Mm-mm. You can see there, I've done it. It doesn't look out of place. Like it doesn't look wonky. At least not to my eye. Somebody's probably maybe doesn't look perfect to them, but that's okay.
Look at it tomorrow. It will look perfect.
Yep. So one of the other things we did on this, and we're going to let this dry. We're actually getting pretty close to this painting being done, actually. And we're, what, an hour in?
Yeah, we got some more to do.
We do have some more. But, I mean, in terms of the heavy lifting has been done.
Woo! Now the cool down? Are we in the
Now
cool down?
Now we're into, cool down mode. And because really all that comes next is we are going to put a little suggestion of some trees at the back here. Mine doesn't really need it so much. But if you, actually, can I borrow yours?
Mm-hmm.
Yours, so I've kind of got a nice little band of dark that separates my field from the
I
mountains.
painted fog on mine.
Jenny lost hers. And you could leave it like that. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you feel like, something feels undefined, we can do some very loose suggestion of some form of
Foliage.
trees at the back of this field, and the way I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to use my number 4. I'm going to mix up a little bit of black, a little bit of turquoise, maybe a little phthalo red.
So we're making a grunge color.
Grunge
It's
color.
a grungy.
Yeah, I got a little too much turquoise in there, but it's fine. I'm not gonna pick on myself. But I'm gonna start kind of just working across, and you can kind of come in and this should come right down to your rose. You can kind of pull some of this color down the row if you want. But just breaking this up a little bit. And all I'm really doing is just wiggling across.
And I find like using very little paint on your brush
Very
is
little paint.
ideal because I started off with too much. I was like, whoa, what am I going to do with all this?
Yeah, and I'll just zoom in real quick and you can see. It's just creating a little transition buffer between the mountains and our field. And you maybe don't feel like you need to do it. And that's fine. That's the beauty of painting. You can do what feels good to you. And it doesn't have to be what feels good to me or Jenny or anybody else. As long as you feel like it needs something, add something. If you feel like it's good enough, it's good enough. You're not wrong. Well, you can be wrong. I'll tell you when you're wrong. Is when you get too obsessed. On little things that just are not that big of a deal. I thought about putting like a big tree in this. Like I've seen, and you look online, you look up lavender fields, and there's a lot of, you'll probably see a couple paintings that you can tell or photos that you can tell inspired the sky or something, but a lot of them have like a big tree.
Yeah, right, the middle.
Yeah, and I think that's cool looking, but I felt like it was, since there's so many photos of it that way.
Well, it really does, like, it takes all your attention, so it's going to grab the attention first.
Well, and that tree like that can honestly be the thing that really derails
It
me.
can make or break it.
And because you could get all of this going right here, and you throw that tree in there, and all of a sudden you're talking about a lot of technique. You're talking about a lot of understanding how a tree grows, whereas none of this other stuff, there's a lot going into it. But a big oak tree sitting in the middle of the field, that's a painting in and of itself. We'll do it one day, but not when we've got all this other stuff going on. That might be a good wheat field painting where we're not worried about rows. We watched, speaking of wheat fields, we watched the Superman the movie from 1978.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. We watched that the other night. It was so great. I had such a huge crush on Christopher Reeve when I was about
6.
And watching it again, it brought back all those same feelings. I'm like, he's such a kind Superman. He's such a, like, good soul.
Oh, he was my idol when I was that age.
I loved him.
I think back and I was like, I think that Superman was probably the first thing I ever drew outside of a coloring book. You know, like where I sat down with a piece of paper and crayons and drew something. And I'm pretty sure it was Superman because I remember my bedroom, I had about 4 or 5 of them drawings I had done on the wall. And I think my first watercolor was Luke Skywalker fighting Darth Vader from when I was like probably 5 or 6.
No, it was fun watching that. I highly recommend it. What did we see it on? Was it on HBO or Netflix?
It was on
or?
HBO Max because HBO Max has the whole DC universe stuff.
I want to watch the other ones now.
Our daughter is 16 and full Batman mode right now after watching The Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Her favorite actor is in that movie, but now she's like fully engaged in all things Batman.
Mm-hmm. It's not Robert Pattinson. That's not. I knew that would be the easy choice.
Yeah.
She likes the guy who plays the Riddler.
Well, he's a really good actor.
He's really good.
I like a lot of his movies.
Our favorite movie with him was Little Miss Sunshine. He's about 15 in that movie.
And Swiss Army Man.
Yeah, that was a weird movie.
Swiss Army Man is it's not for everybody.
It's very bizarre, so be prepared.
I do recommend it though if you like
totally off the beaten path.
Totally off the beaten path, thought-provoking, quirky, weird. I hope nobody catches me watching this movie.
There's a type of movie that you want to like Google search. What is the meaning behind this?
And you don't know what the meaning is even after you Google search it.
But the director left it completely open.
Yeah. So let's get back to our painting.
Yes.
Next step is we're going to start. We've kind of got some hint of trees. I think the thing with the trees at the background is you don't want them to become a major element. You just kind of want them to just create this little relief zone between where the mountains end and the field start.
Okay.
So they just don't get too involved in it. What we're going to do next is we're going to go to our number 4 brush, and everything we're going to do from here on out is going to be basically like pointillism.
Fun.
So to start with, I want to start getting some of our lavender color in here. Now the thing that's really disappointing with paints, we would maybe need to try fluorescent purple. There is no such thing as a violet or a purple that just has that vivid, bright purple color that you want to see in terms of artist colors. There might be some in more like craft colors, but even then we've tried a lot, and we just haven't, as far as I can tell, there isn't anything. And so to me, what becomes purple, bright purple and lavender in here, is creating a foundation that is mostly lavender and then adding bright pink, that bright phthalo red, to bring out the redness, because usually the violets are too blue.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to mix together our turquoise and phthalo red, and let's add just a touch of white to this.
Well, plus we're looking at the lavender in, the sunset, so
lighting.
It would change it.
Yeah. And basically, I like to turn the brush so that the bristles are more like this than this. Because I'm thinking about, like, if you think about the way lavender grows, it kind of grows in, like, rods.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to kind of start kind of dabbing. I start at the back so that as I work my way down the canvas, what we put on overlaps what's behind it. Because as we get closer, things in there closer to us are going to overlap what we see behind.
Thanks, Kim, for joining us. Yes, you're in Florida. You are, what are you, 3 hours difference. So you're almost 11 o'clock. Well, I am definitely in bed by 11 o'clock, so
I'm not...
I feel ya.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. I'm so glad that you come in every
We love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think the first, 2 months we did the live streams, we
never had anybody,
and we're literally just talking to ourselves. And I think even it was just a couple months ago, we had one time where we had, I think, close to 20 people in, and it was like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah, so we appreciate you guys joining in.
Then I see my favorite YouTubers, and they're doing a live stream, and they're like, I've got 2,500 people in here. I'm like, oh, jeez. Someday, man, someday. We had somebody comment the other day on one of our videos. I can't remember which video it was. It wasn't one of the new ones. That we are their favorite YouTube channel.
I saw that. I thought that was so nice.
Yeah. So what I'm doing, and you can see it's very subtle, but you can see the lavender sitting on top of the grain. And this little step, I'm not filling it in solid, but this little bit, I'm going to add just a touch of white to this so it's a little bit more lavender. This little bit, it needs a little bit more pink, is really an important part of this process. It's getting this color.
You need to zoom.
I can zoom.
What are you doing exactly? Getting this color what?
Getting this little bit of lavender just kind of dusted in on top of the green. And it just shifts it. You can see when you look at the monitor that this one is a little bit different than the others. You see that? This one right here. A little bit different. It's because we're starting to build those colors in. This row I've got a little bit more pink, and that's actually looking a little bit better.
Mine has a bit more pink in it too.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter because we're going to be coming back through here and adding more. We're going to add some bright green bits here and there too pretty soon.
Yeah, I like that. The addition of the green apple is really good.
It kind of, we talked about this when we were setting up today, it replaces yellow in our color scheme. So typically we're going to want it, whenever we're working, you know, we always try to think of it like primary colors as being the foundation. And we kind of have different versions of the primary colors sometimes. And in this case, we don't have yellow, we've got the green apple instead, but it creates that same impact on the color profile of this painting. Because what the other thing is, we don't even talk about a lot of this stuff, but yellow and purple, while they're in theory complementary colors, they also kind of neutralize each other. So because purple and green both have blue in them, they enhance each other a little bit more versus purple and yellow. So there you go. That sounds good, right?
Sounds like a good BS line from Paul.
Yep. It might be. I'll never tell.
Part truth. Actually, all truth, but partly embellished, or
It's not really.
not embellished. That's not the right word.
Made up on the fly. That's not true.
Made more colorful. How about that?
Yeah, no, but I mean, there's truth to it. It's not something I was sitting there thinking about though when I designed this. I didn't think to myself, oh, I need to use green instead of yellow so that
you
know.
used green because I was like, these are our colors this month, Paul. Can you work with them? Oh yeah, I can do it.
That's how it goes every month. It's just like
One of us picks the colors.
Jenny's always like, what colors do you want to use this month? I don't know. You pick what you want, and I'll figure something out.
So that is how we do it.
That is how we do it. It's kind of how we pick dinner too. What do you want for dinner tonight, Paul? Well, I'm not picky. You pick whatever you want, and I'm good with that.
And whatever we want, our 16-year-old wants the exact opposite and is highly offended by our choices.
Until she wants that.
Until she wants that, yeah.
All right, so with this color, gosh, she would be horrified.
How much we knock her on this channel.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a little
She'll
bit of...
never know because she never watches it.
She might, though. Her friends stalk us.
No, they don't.
Again, we're just going to kind of smudge some of this color over into these other areas. Just little hints so it doesn't feel left out. So you were right. There's still a lot of work to do. It's not like it's difficult work. It's more just time-consuming little stuff.
This painting makes me think it's somewhere like in France.
Well, so now that's a good idea.
What kind of mountains does France have?
Well, I mean, they do have mountains. I don't know what variety they are. I think they're tectonic.
Are they like the Alps?
Well,
Yeah, like the French Alps.
There's part of this. There's more than one, though, I think. I'm not sure.
But you know everything.
I try. I try. You know, I did see that like a huge percentage of France is actually completely unpopulated.
Nice.
Like, you think of like Europe as being so densely populated, but like there's this whole like northern region.
Actually, one of our employees he was an instructor at our studio, and then he moved out of state and does graphic design for us. He does all those instruction sheets you guys get in your box every month. He has some property like in the south of France.
He does.
And they can't build on it because
they're Americans.
The mayor of the town, just was like, no, I'm sick of these Americans buying property here. So he keeps like putting up weird laws so they can't.
Well, they didn't buy the property though, didn't they? Inherit it from?
No, they bought it.
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm. It's just a tiny. He said it has a shack on it.
I think you're right. I think he said it has like a stone.
Yeah, like falling down.
Stone wall shack on it.
Good for him though, man. He's got acreage in France. I think it's like an acre.
All right, so just gonna keep.
But I am curious about what kind of mountains are there. We need someone from France to chime in and tell us.
Where's Ellen?
Yeah. Well, for tonight I'll use Google. The Pyrenees. Separating France from Spain, this mountain range creates an imposing and continuous barrier between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic across a distance of 430 kilometers.
Cool. All right. Let's switch now to our smallest brush.
Okay.
We are going to add some little pops of bright green. And if I bring back the original, we're getting down to kind of the last little finishing steps here. You can see there's a greater concentration of this green kind of in this area, which if you look at my original painting, it's in line with our bright spot in the sky. And as we move away, it gets less and less and less to the point we get none. And I've kind of got this area over here where we just added a little bright pop. And what that does is it helps balance this contrast up here. So this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna move this. So we're gonna look at, here's my bright spot. I'm gonna kind of think of everything kind of radiating out from there. I'm gonna start out by, these are gonna cast some shadows, so I'm just gonna add some little bits and pops. Thinking about maybe the rows are going, and look how that changes that. Look at that, isn't that like?
It looks like one of those like weird little sunspots when you, or lens flare when you
kind of like almost looks like the northern lights too. Kind of in a way to me, the way it's kind of glowing.
Interesting.
Hey now.
I'm just
At least be nice.
Northern lights on the ground.
Well, I'm just saying the way that the color pops and the way it.
Yeah, that vivid green.
Now the other thing is I'm thinking about the rows. Like the rows are not, like this row here is not going to get a lot of this brightness on the side away from that, so it's mostly going to be.
Did you mix that with anything?
Nope.
So it's just plain green apple.
Just plain green apple.
Nice.
Just a little bit along here.
Daniel says there needs to be a TIE fighter flying in.
I tried that.
Hey, maybe he didn't see our Star Wars one.
Oh, I sent a picture to him.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna ship you one, Daniel, so you can join in and make your own X-wing.
So I'm just getting that color over there, and again, it's just kind of creating a little balance to our brightness in the sky. That was a car, by the way.
Somebody out there has a really loud engine. I mean, like a high-pitched loud, like not a good loud engine. Not a muscle car type of engine, it's a high-pitched.
Although it's a hopped-up Subaru, so it probably would blow the doors off of one of the old muscle cars.
Blasphemy.
I don't understand, like, so many of them, they drive, and I'm going to sound like a boomer right now, but so many of them drive around and their cars backfire so much, and it's like, I think they do it on purpose. but I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel out of touch. You know what I'm talking about because you're chuckling. You're just not going to say it out loud.
I was thinking about the one that did that the other night when we were out for our walk. It's like, really? It sounds like you're driving a vacuum cleaner and you're trying to impress someone.
Somebody
Well,
got...
it's only because, like, so we heard them, we turned around, Greta and I turned around, and then suddenly they, like, revved everything up and went by, like, extra fast. Like, you know, oh, girls are looking at me. And it was like...
And the dogs are like, what the heck?
We're all looking at him, like, scratching our heads.
So as I'm moving my way across this, you notice I'm kind of just keeping these all on the side facing the light. And as I work my way from left to right, I'm going to get less and less and less. Unless my bright spot is on the right and I'm moving away from it.
I do like this. This is nice.
Yeah, you're getting pretty bold with that, and it looks good.
Actually, in the monitor, yours looks really bold, but maybe it doesn't in person.
Yeah, yours looks really bold by comparison to mine, I think. Like, it's you're just using bigger. You're using a bigger brush.
I'm using the same one. Oh, you're using the littlest brush.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay.
And it doesn't matter.
Breaking the rules.
Yeah, it's just you can use the bigger brush if you want to, the number 4.
I like it.
As I get a little bit further onto this right-hand side, there's almost none. And I'm kind of keeping them a little bit further away because up close we're going to do more of the more vibrant lavender, pinker highlights. Maybe a little hint. Don't want to do too much of this on this far right though because it's more in the shadows. In the shadows, the shadows. I haven't bust that joke out in a while. I don't know if it counts as a joke though because it's not funny.
There's that element. I put a lot of turquoise in my sky, but I
mean, you could even put some of the turquoise in
the field.
You
Sure.
wanted to. I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna do it right now.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt because there's something that Monet does in his paintings where he will take. I'm gonna guess he probably was using cerulean blue.
God, I love that color.
But he will put it in like an area like over here, and very subtly and just kind of. Actually, it's not even really subtle. He'll put it in there, and for some reason, it makes that area feel darker, even though it's a bright color. Let's see what happens if we do that. I mean, the guy was onto something.
He's onto something.
And you can see, I mean, it's just in this area. For some reason, it just does its thing and
Very nice.
adds some life to it. I'll do some a little bit over here, too. I'm not doing anything real specific other than just adding the color, but it does serve another purpose, too, and that's it helps balance the turquoise in the sky. You don't have to do this.
That's true, actually. It does do that. It pulls the eye around there.
Yeah, you don't have to do this, but it's kind of cool looking. I like it.
You don't have to do it, but all the cool kids are.
Jenny, this is a peer pressure free zone. I'm gonna ring the Planet Fitness bell on you. The judgment free zone. What was it that they used to call it? There's like no meat heading allowed or something like that.
Something like that. No grunting.
No, there is a term for it.
I don't know.
Anyway, so just that little bit, it just kind of adds a night. I actually got a little bit too much right there. That's an easy fix. All right, so kind of our last step, and again, this is kind of one of those things where it's like you can do a little bit more if you want, but I think this painting has a lot going on in it to begin with, so there's not really any need to do a bunch of extra stuff. It would be really easy to get really fixated on getting really detailed down in here, and you just have to, I always have to think, like, are you really adding anything to it, or is it just adding, like, is it adding to the painting? Because you can add and add and add and add, but it doesn't necessarily change the painting. Are you changing the painting in a positive way? That's the words I'm looking for. All right, mostly pink. Add just a tiny bit of turquoise, tiny bit of white. And I am going to start. You already did yours, didn't you?
When I did my purple color, it ended up being that color. Like, I didn't get it like a bluey purple like you have on yours. So I'm just going to leave mine, I think.
All right, so I'm going to get a little bit bolder because this is more of our actual flowers. Again, this is more along the top. If you wanted to get really defined, I mean, you could do, as you get closer to the bottom, I mean, you could do some more specific shapes, especially when you get down into here. But the main thing, the thing that's kind of hard when you get down in these areas, that when you're doing more like specific shapes and stuff like that, it's kind of hard to figure out where they start and where they end. Just kind of work across this. Ooh, that's bright. And the reason this kind of all, even though it's pink on top, the reason it still feels like what it should feel like is it's because it's got that purpley undertone in the underpainting.
Oh yeah, that looks good. A little reflection of the sky, maybe.
Yeah, it's just picking up. It just balances it. I mean, there's something about painting that, like, is, when you're talking about composition, you want balance, but you don't want it to be like balance isn't always even. Like, I think about it like in terms of like Japanese gardening, for example. Like, you see like the way a bonsai tree is pruned and stuff, and it's designed to have balance by being out of balance.
Wabi sabi.
Yeah. And so you think about like 3s and 5s, odd numbers tend to be more pleasing to the eye. Well, the reason is
We're odd.
yes.
We're just all odd.
Well, no, it's impossible. It's almost impossible to balance odd numbers unless you've got one that's like exactly in the middle, and then the other two exactly offset from each other, or from that middle one. But that's not the way it works. There's a time and place. When you think about, like, what's your tattoo? It's a mandala?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are perfectly symmetrical. And they're beautiful in their own right. I guess the bottom line is neither's wrong, neither's right. It's all good. Whatever Suits your vibe.
I think I'm going to sign mine. Do you have anything else besides?
Nope,
this?
I'm just
Okay.
about done.
Because I don't really want to do much else to it.
Yeah, this painting could be really easy to get too busy.
I feel like my vineyard is bordering on that. So I'm just going to sign it and be like...
Wow, you painted a vineyard?
I mean, that's funny.
I think you missed an important step somewhere along
I kept
here.
calling it that even right after you designed it. My lavender field ended up being almost too busy.
Busy without being defined.
Yeah, it is that. So I guess I'm probably okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm almost done here. How are we looking time-wise? Wow.
8:10.
No, I was looking at the run time. Hour and 40. It's not bad.
Not bad. We should show the paintings that we're doing
Yeah.
next month. I know we showed them in the last video, but not everyone tuned into last.
Don't rush me. I'm almost done here. And I'm teaching, so people need to see this.
Such a pretty color. I might borrow some of that right off your palette.
So I do want to, I'm just going to personally take a little bit of just some bright, just the plain phthalo red and just some very quick little dabs of it here and there. Not too much. We don't want it to become too pink. You know, I think would be a fun painting would be, you know what fireweed looks like? In like the mountain meadows of Alaska and here in Oregon, and it's just vibe. I almost think of like crocus, not crocus, crocosmia color.
Ooh, pretty.
And you can actually make jam from the flowers.
Fireweed jam.
Yeah. So just these extra little hints of. Basically what I'm looking for is where I've got muddy areas, and I've kind of got some muddy areas in here, which is okay. But just adding a couple little dabs of just the pink, just to break up the muddiness. All right. Was there something else that we needed to do on this? No, I think that's it. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sign mine, and then I'll pull up next month's paintings. I'm going to use my green apple because we just don't use green apple enough.
That is right.
There. And this painting all of a sudden just became all about my signature. No, not really. Not really. Okay, so let me rearrange my desk here a bit. Let's see how Jenny did. Let's move this off to the side. Ooh, Jenny, you got messy.
Yeah, my vineyard looks a little different than yours. Or my lavender field.
Yeah, I like it. Totally different.
Got a lot of brighter colors in it. I don't know. I like this on yours because it really picks up the sky color. I guess mine does a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But,
That actually ended up getting more like...
I like my sky a lot, actually.
Yeah, your sky turned out really good.
I was a little worried about all the light turquoise, but I really like it.
You worked on this area quite a bit. I saw you working on it. And I like how you got that extra, like, softness to it. Mm-hmm. That looks good. And I think that's the thing, like, a lot of times when we start talking about clouds and stuff and people struggling with clouds, they lose that softness.
I think my mountains are maybe a little too sculpted, roundy.
Mm-hmm. No, I think they're fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the mountains are like wherever this field is.
Yeah, France.
You've very much got, like, this area down here. It's very Monet feeling when you see it up close.
Ooh.
It's just a lot of colors going on. You can compare it to the original. Got paper towels, joint coming along for the ride. Let's see. Boom.
You did the wrong painting.
I did, I know. But you can see on the original,
I actually like the addition of this rosy through here. That looks really nice.
Just it warms it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's talk about next month's paintings real quick. Let me get these out of the way. So Jenny has got kind of a new spin on an old classic in the studio, and that's
Blue Moon Willow.
Blue Moon Willow. And this is a fun painting. It's very designy.
Whimsical.
Whimsical. Mm-hmm.
And that it's allows you to use different colors too, and
I like
there's lots of personal choices you get to make throughout this painting.
Yeah,
it's a choose your own adventure.
It is totally a choose your. Now I like some of the things that you've done in this version versus the old original version. I like this transition here. I don't remember that there was a transition like that. And I like the color. Like I feel like the original was more. It was it ultramarine blue is what the original one was?
Mm-hmm.
So, which has a little bit of a more of a purplish tint. Now we haven't shipped ultramarine with any of our shipments.
We don't like our ultramarine.
Yeah, it's. I think it would be fine in studio. It's a very interesting color in that it really works best just as a tinting agent, but it really has to be mixed with something else to do its job. Otherwise it just seems like it's just staining the canvas. And then
we're going to the beach.
We're going to the beach. So here's our beach vibes.
Looks like it's raining out there.
Yeah, is this the one I did last night? I think it is.
Yeah. It is. Mm-hmm.
So this is like we were talking about how we sometimes do multiple versions of it, and I've got an original version that I did as our concept painting, and then we had to go back and do photos. And there's one little thing we're going to change on this when we actually paint it, and that's this curl is we're going to not have it curl down and then curl back up. It's basically it'll be easier. So, but outside of that, I mean, this is I think this painting is actually, again, looks a lot harder than it actually is. Like, I'd say it's way easier than the one that we just did.
Oh, yeah. I can see that it's easier than the one we just did tonight.
Yeah. And then, of course, then we've got the May the 4th.
Yes. So if you want to join us May the 4th, that'll be our next live stream. And that is our Star Wars Day. So you can get your kit on gobox.com. We'll send you all the colors. And
I just want me to be very candid about this painting. This is the second one I did. The first one I did TIE Fighters, and as simple as TIE Fighters are, I could not get them right.
They were looking a little funky.
I think it's because they are so simple, it's hard to... He totally missed. I think because they're so simple, it's hard to actually have it look like something when it's out of context. So we locked in on this, but yeah. Anyway, outside of that, guys, let's zip on back. Here we are. We're back.
We're back.
And so
back to say goodbye.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for popping in today. We had quite a few people in today. That was fun. Friday night, paint night. I love it. It was good. We've morphed to doing Friday nights. In fact, the whimsical painting you just saw that I did is going to stream on Friday the 13th. Ooh. That means you have to paint Jason Voorhees in yours. Jason Voorhees. That'll be easy to do. It'll be someplace. And then mine will be the following Friday. So Friday, what, the 20th? Whatever it is. 20th? Whatever 13 plus 7 is. Yeah, that's 20. So we will we'll see you guys May the 4th if you want to join in and do that Star Wars painting. I'll work on some trivia and even if you just want to just pop in and we'll talk a lot about our Star Wars history because we're major Star Wars nerds. I'm actually wearing a Star Wars shirt. Are you? Right now. I got my Rebel Alliance shirt on right now. But yeah, I think that'll be one where we just really have a lot of fun talking about memories of Star Wars and stuff like that. It would be a little bit... We both got to see the original movies in the theater, so that's kind of cool. I thought you did. Drive-in or something. Saw the drive-in. It's a theater. It counts, so... watched it from the back of the Vista Cruiser. Nice. That's perfect. Yeah, maybe we should have some retro treats or something while we paint. Yeah, we'll see you guys May the 4th. Just in a couple weeks. Just in a couple weeks. And thank you again for joining us. If you want to check out what we are, gobox.com. We have all kinds of projects you can buy, or you can become a member and get 2 projects a month for a discounted price.
So we will we'll see you guys later. Let us know if you have any questions. We're on our website, gobox.com. You can pop in and use the chat feature and talk to Paul or I at any time.
Yeah, and then the other good resource is our Facebook group. So the Go Box Art Create group, not the business page, the group. We've got a lot of good active members like to post their paintings.
We love you guys to post your paintings.
And Jenny and I, Jenny more than I do because I have another business I run too. But we try to do our best to answer questions and interact, and we usually tease our paintings on there first.
Yep.
So that's a great, and that's a good group. That's a good group. We got a lot of
positive
good active.
group.
We had
Everybody's so positive.
Had a lady this week posted, I think, 5 or 6 pictures that her kids had painted from our videos, and I think she's from overseas. So
yeah.
So anyway, with all that said, we're talking too much. We're gonna get out of here.
We're gonna head out. We're going to enjoy the rest of our Friday night and hope you guys do too. And we will see you May the 4th.
We'll see you May the 4th.
Bye.
Bye-bye.